Welcome back to the ProSource Podcast, everybody. I am honored to be sitting here today with Jamann Stepp. He is the Senior Vice President of Hard Surface over at Stanton. Of course, he's going to be sitting here with me today to talk about hard surface over at Stanton and giving some quality advice, information to our Trade Pro members. But first, I just want to do a brief introduction on who he is. He has more than 30 years of experience in the hard surface category. He's also played a key role in shaping product strategy, growth, and innovation across the industry, including leadership roles at Dixie, Cortec, and Shaw Industries. And he is joining me today to share insights, like I said, on market trends, design direction, and where hard surface is headed for next for trade pros and their projects. Thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the podcast and talk a little bit about floors, which is what our life consists of, it seems. But no, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
To kick things off, tell us just a little bit more about your role at Stanton, anything I didn't cover in that brief introduction, and then what you focus on day to day.
Yeah. The introduction was great. I appreciate it. 30 years in hard surface, about 36 total, 37 in the industry. So it's been a lifelong journey. But, I joined Stanton 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, having spent just close to the last 6 years at Dixie, as you mentioned, and that was my last stop in helping build their hard surface division. But I've been here a little over 2 years, and obviously my day consists of a lot of things. I'm kind of master of all ceremonies, maybe is the right word to put it, from product development, product design, our vendor relations as far as that goes, all the way through the operational side of that, into the sales side and the finance and the P&L responsibility for the whole hard service division. So there's a lot going on a daily basis. So there's obviously product and design and innovation, along with building a sales team and a robust group of sales managers that we put in place across the country to handle our hard surface business. And so it's been a 2-year sprint, if you will, to get the foundation built, to pull together what is Stanton hard surface today, as opposed to what it looked like 2 years ago when they kicked it off back in 2020. So it's been fast paced. It's been fun. It's had some challenges, obviously, that we'll get into here in a little bit when we talk about the economy and where the market is and what the industry's been doing. But yeah, it's been a really fun ride, and it's exciting, and it I guess keeps me young, right? So it's good.
Absolutely. And if I'm thinking back to 30 plus years ago, like you mentioned, where did you get your start in this industry? Like, what made you want to go into flooring and what it is now?
Kind of an odd segue into the industry. I grew up here in North Georgia, graduated from Dalton High School, went off to college at the University of Alabama, and moved back home. I grew up in the real estate and construction business here in North Georgia, so had never been into a carpet mill or a factory or a facility, although this is the world's, the epicenter and the capital of flooring. Now it was carpet then, obviously back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, it was all carpet, and there was not as much focus, especially by Mohawk and Shaw in the hard surface arena, obviously. But I got into it, graduated college, moved back home, and went into work with Queen Carpet. We were at the time the fourth largest carpet manufacturer in the country, and privately held family business. And we parlayed the growth of that business into the point where Shaw acquired us in August of '98. And not too far after that, I kind of raised my hand as one of the guinea pigs to get into hard surface for Shaw Industries. They had exited the retail side of the equation that they had entered in 1996, and Shaw got out of that. And part of that process was owning a ton of hard surface inventory through all the acquisitions they had made in the retail sector. And so the decision was made to segue into hard surface distribution. There was obviously no Shaw manufacturing of hard surface at that time. So we became a trading company, if you will, marketing and importing and marketing and selling hard surface flooring. And I was responsible for our tile and stone segment of that business for about a little over 5 years, until I decided to move to South Florida and get deeper into the tile and stone world with a smaller company, a more regional based company. And that's kind of how I got started in the industry. And so I spent my first 6 years making carpet, primarily the commercial contract side, with Queen Commercial, Packcraft, and Cumberland Commercial. I was on that side of the business, manufacturing and operations of that. And so, again, that kind of segued into the opportunity with hard surface, and I've been hard surface guy ever since.
Stanton was widely known for being strictly more like soft surface, right? Only carpet. And then you mentioned in 2020, they brought into the hard surface products. For people that might not be aware of Stanton prior to right now, this episode, how would you describe the brand today and specifically bringing in the hard surface products into the mix?
Stanton started in 1980. Cy Cohen started the business, still the patriarch of the business, and a great innovator and sales guy, and has done an excellent job over the last 4 decades plus, building Stanton into what I call the benchmark leader, if you will, in that niche, high-end luxury decorative carpet segment that in a sandbox with a very few players, Stanton is definitely at the top of that hill, right, in that sandbox, and has been for many, many years. And that's kind of what I've always known of Stanton. And every time I would travel and go into retail stores, I would always see the Stanton soft surface, if you will. And so, as you said, 2020, Stanton decided to segue into the hard surface arena. I guess the timing couldn't have been better, right? COVID hit, and we all thought at that time, everyone in the industry thought once that hit and everything was locked down, that our businesses might really take a tumble. But just the opposite happened. We had this 2-year plus run of, obviously we had crazy costs associated to transportation and ocean freight and some of the other things that rolled in there, but we couldn't get enough product, right? No one in the industry could really keep enough supply chain flowing to service the business that was coming in during that COVID period, if you like to use that word, right? So throughout all that, we just grew and grew. And that, I think that was very beneficial, obviously, for Stanton at the time. I was at Dixie during all of that. And we again saw growth and saw tremendous growth, as did Stanton. But Stanton also started out in the SPC category of the rigid core vinyl world, right? So they started out with just a handful, probably about 20 SKUs, give or take. And then in 21 and 22 added to that each time. I came on board not quite a year, maybe about a year after that acquisition had taken place, to further enhance the ability to get into the hard surface arena through the acquisition of Floors 2000. So, again, I joined in November of 23, the company here, and started to expand. And we'll get some of that other stuff in a second, I'm sure. But we just started to really become, figure out how we want to be more of a player across a portfolio of products rather than just servicing just a rigid core SPC category.
COVID impacted so many industries, but especially when you're thinking about home remodeling, like you said, you have everyone staying at home. So they're looking at their house. They have the urge or more urges to redesign their home to tailor it how they want if they're going to be stuck at home all the time. Yep. And then you have the other side of germs, right? You want something that's easy to clean. Carpet, unfortunately, is not as easy to clean as a hard surface product. So both of those together, I'm sure, just made the hard surface category boom during that period for like a couple of years at least. Was there anything you saw in Stanton that you wanted to not immediately improve, but anything that you were like, okay, we can definitely do this differently. This is how we can improve the performance or design of these Stanton hard surface products. Was there anything that came to mind when you joined?
Oh yeah, I mean that was front of mind even through the interview process of kind of seeing like, hey, where can I help take Stanton? What can we do? And obviously leveraging off of the Stanton name, the Stanton brand that is out there within the design community and within the trade community as well as specialty retail. What we offer. So, my mindset was come in, pull together obviously a different group of products, not just SPC, which we've done, laminate, WPC, a premium engineered hardwood program, even this year launching loose lay. So we brought all those into the mix, right? So if you fast forward from the November of 23 to where we finished 2025, and as we launch into 2026, we've got SPC, flex, glue down, vinyl. We've got a loose lay program we're introducing, this quarter. And then we added last year WPC, laminate, and a hardwood category. So, you add all those up, we pretty much bring something across the board outside of porcelain, and I'll touch on that quickly. We obviously acquired through Floors 2000 a porcelain tile line that was regionally sold, really based out of Pensacola. There's distribution there in Pensacola, Florida, and after we studied it and looked at some of our opportunities to service the country, it's very difficult in the tile and stone business to be influential in pockets where you don't have distribution. And so there's a lot of breakage. It's heavy. It's expensive to ship. And so we made a decision, late mid-year, I guess, of last year that we were going to exit the porcelain category. And obviously we had some really strong ties in business in the deep South over into Texas and Florida and some other things. But, we weren't capable with our distribution capabilities of being able to service, the Northeast, upper Midwest, Ohio Valley, the West Coast, the Rockies, all that kind of area. So we're missing a lot of that opportunity. We weren't going to invest the CapEx dollars to be able to inventory what we should, such as the folks like MSI and Dow Tile and Imser and some of these other competitors that are very strong in those categories that they're capable of doing with their regional centers, service centers, and their service centers in general. So we did that. Obviously, that freed up CapEx and some dollars for capital and to go out and do these things with wood and WPC and laminate and some of the other categories that we can service, east to west, north to south, and cover the country. So that was kind of the rationale behind doing that. And so I think now we have this, complete portfolio of product in hard surface, merchandising and branding, Stanton Design. We retooled the whole brand to Stanton Design last year, launched that in 25. All of our merchandising is tying together both soft and hard surface in its scheme and color and format. So all those things kind of coming into play too. So that's kind of where the head, our mindset was, and where mine was, is like, what can I come in and do, and what can we do? Now, obviously we want to, create beautiful product. Nobody wants to buy an ugly floor, right? So we want to be able to take our design team and pull all that stuff together internally that's bringing on the trend and the color and the feel of what the consumer is demanding today and the designer's demanding today. And so that's a big part of what we also do on the product development side, is really study color, design, texture, all those kind of things, not just for soft surface and carpet, but for, for the hard surface category as well. And we said here today, right, with 36 SKUs of wood, 36 SKUs of laminate, about 60 plus SKUs of WPC and 70 SKUs of SPC and some flex and all. So we got, just south of 300 SKUs probably in our total portfolio that we're taking out to the market.
You talked a lot about why Stanton is a great company. And I do like that you guys kind of made room to specialize in on what you're really good at, right? Like you said, you kind of gave up the porcelain side of the business just so that you can focus on some of the areas where you guys really strive at. But you also brought up some competitors too. Why do you think, when looking at all these competitors in the hard surface category, because it's a massive industry, why do you think trade pros should consider Stanton when they're looking at their choice of hard surface products?
Yeah, I think obviously, the history on the soft surface design and innovation kind of speaks for itself. That lends into what we want to do on the hard surface side as well. I think pulling that together, the strength and numbers in terms of the reputation that Stanton has put into the marketplace over the last 4 decades, that's important. What's also key and important is our field level representation, right? Our reps and our regional VPs that are out calling on the trade and the designers and calling on the customer. And it's a relationship thing too. I mean, our business, you mentioned it, there's so many folks that are importing a floor and trying to sell a floor in this country, right? Whether it's a regional pocketed type of distributor or it's someone that has national scope and basis and sells all over the country, and whether they're going 2-step through distribution or they're going direct with a sales force. I think it's very much relational, but it comes back to design, color, style, look. Price points are obviously important in the marketplace too, for both at the trade level and at the wholesale level. We're all trying to, obviously we have to be profitable to stay in business and continue to offer all these, great innovative products and things. But it's, I think Stanton brings, with the trade, especially in the design part of the trade, that Stanton is synonymous with high quality, with design, fashion, and those things.
Is there a specific issue that you've heard from trade pros? And it can be anything, maybe something more specifically to a recent issue that trade pros have communicated with Stanton on what they're looking for in terms of quality or the kind of flooring that they're wanting, that you guys maybe go back to your design team and you're like, hey, this has been a reoccurring issue or feedback that we've received from pros. We have to focus on fixing whatever this issue is. Is there something you can think of?
Yeah, I think, well, from an installation, from the trade side of the installation side, the ease of, and I won't call out any of the click systems per se individually, but part of the challenge over the last 4 years really has been at the trade level the installation of what I call the thin, inexpensive entry-level SPC products. Having been in this industry as long as I have, and maybe I'm the only person willing to sit up here and talk to you honestly about the fact that, we as an industry, whether it's soft surface or hard surface for that matter, we introduce a product, we innovate a product, we get it into the marketplace. This happened with the laminate category back in the 90s and early 2000s. It's happened in the last 7 years with the rigid core vinyl world and SPC, that we race to the bottom. And we go try to find a supplier that can value engineer the product, make it thinner, make it less expensive. Anytime you do all those things, you're taking a raw material away, or you're making a compromise in quality to hit a price point and value and engineer to a price point. And ultimately that price point gets to a point where it gets in the field and it starts failing. And then when it starts failing, everybody starts pointing fingers, right? It's, whatever it may be. But I get it all. It's just part of it. It hasn't changed in my 36 years in this industry, and I don't think it will change necessarily. But you always, the old saying is, you get what you pay for, right? And so you have to be careful with that. And just because it's the least expensive and you can buy a bunch and stack it high and sell it cheap, you're also probably going to get a lot of phone calls on the back end when it fails. And how much does that cost you, right? So you got to factor those things in. And I think the industry's learned a lesson again. This happened with laminate, like I said. When Pergo launched laminate in the United States in the mid-90s, and it was being sold at Home Depot for $6 a foot at retail, you can go in and buy, that brand that, it's been synonymous with laminate, just like Cortec has been synonymous with the rigid core vinyl category, right? Those are the two leaders, if you will, in those respective categories. But people have again, value engineered and come in with products that just don't stand up to the test of time, no pun intended, but it is what it is. So I think, part of the trade has been reluctant to use a particular click system, especially on very thin SPC, because of that failure rate. And that's been a big thing at the trade level, especially the mechanic installation side of the trade level. And so people have shied away from that. That's why I think the industry has seen kind of this resurgence in I guess you'd say the WPC category, or maybe even loose lay as an option to SPC. So you're seeing some of those options play out. And again, right, it's just like what works best for everybody. It's not always just price point. It's quality, it's design, it's innovation. And not be afraid to, be proud of your products and stand behind those products. But it's been difficult. The industry, the trade, the economy's been difficult for, 3+ years now. It's been a challenge. But like I said, we did it with laminate in the 90s and then this rigid core vinyl category hit the market with Cortec, and it kind of put laminate in a corner. And now laminate has made some innovations in, again, design, and they've made great improvements in their quality of their core, their chassis, and things have come back around where laminate is now a great viable product. We're actually in the category in a big way, and I'm bullish on laminate as a category. But again, like when it first hit the U.S., it was, like I said, talking about my competitors in a good way, but Pergo was it, right? I mean, people that buy laminate floors even today, sometimes they'll still mention Pergo as their, they think that is what it is, right? That's just a brand within the category, right? And there's tons of laminate suppliers out there. So it's synonymous with the category. They spent millions of dollars to build that and did a great job. So the trade challenges, obviously installing product, it's not good, and I think most people have been burnt on that. The ones that have segued in other directions.
You learn your lesson, right?
Yes.
And I think that's an important, honestly, theme for this whole episode, if we wanted to call it that, because it's something I think we maybe don't talk about enough on this podcast. We talk about the trends and the pretty things, right? What cabinet colors are trending and all that stuff. But I think majority of this audience listening is our trade pro members. And that is the day-to-day problems that they face, is the installation. And a lot of our ProSource showrooms are actually, we have pro shops where people can get their sundries and installation materials, which is great. But just having the knowledge, someone in your position that has been in the industry for 30+ years, where things have went wrong. And maybe newer trade pro members don't, right? Because they don't
Yeah.
have that
Yeah.
experience. So knowledge is power, honestly. And if you can get in front of some of these issues, spend the extra dollar, because you don't want your clients coming back to you in 6 months saying, "Hey, like this
No.
floor is coming up."
No.
That'd be awful, right?
It would be bad. It would be really bad.
Yeah.
And too, to add to that a little bit, I think that there are wonderful SPC products in the marketplace today. I would shy away from anything less than 5 millimeters in thickness, because I think that's where we ran into that problem. As I said, the industry loves to value engineer and drive down a price point, and then we all end up getting a bunch of phone calls, right? So we don't want that. But I think there are some excellent light SPC in the marketplace at 7.5, 8, 8.5, 9 millimeters thick. That are excellent products that will stand up to the test of time and are proven. You look at this category, it launched in 2013, 2014 with Cortec, and obviously Shaw ended up purchasing U.S. Floors, which was the parent company of Cortec, in 2017, really, beginning of 2017. So there's just been a lot of changes and a lot of innovation. And again, just make sure that you're valuing the product and you're looking at the product not necessarily just from what it cost, but what it delivers for you in terms of quality and maintenance and longevity and resilience, all those kind of things, right, that are just going to make it work for you so that you can move on to the next job and feel confident in what you sold and installed is a wonderful product for the homeowner, the end user, the family that's involved, and stands up to the torture they're going to put on it, right?
Yeah. We just talked about the performance and quality of a product, and I always like to look at how nice it looks and how pretty it looks and the end result. If we're putting all of that together into consideration, can you name maybe a few of your favorite Stanton hard surface products that you would recommend? Ones that are selling hot, or even just personal favorites that you have?
Yeah. Obviously, I do think what fits in the Stanton world as good as anything, even the high WPC, higher end WPC products we offer is our premium wood program, our hardwood program. So we've got products in there, 9/16, 5/8, got 3/4 of an inch engineered. We've got almost 12. We got 11.25 inch wide, all the way down to 6 inch wide. The program is super nice. I think the colors turned out exceptionally well. The merchandising units are easy to manage, and they slide out, and it's easy. They're bigger samples, obviously, so you want to be able to handle those and get those when they're in a showroom setting. So the sliders actually are on a track that slide out, and so I'm really proud of the merchandising. Proud of what that looks like. There's a bunch of favorites in there. Lexington Collection is an 11.25 inch wide engineered piece with a 5 millimeter face on it, and super, super nice. We have our Soho and Soho Peak, which is our 6 inch wide plank, and the Soho Peak is our pattern plank that goes with it. We have a plethora of patterns we can do. It's not an A and a B herringbone chevron type plank system. It has a spline in the cartons. It has so that you can twist and turn however you want to make your patterns, and do a lot of unique installation options there with that stuff. So I'm really proud of what we've launched in the hardwood category. We've got more on the way here in later in the year in 26. Those things are great. The laminate category for us, again, we won Best of Show at Surfaces at Tice. We won the award for the laminate category, which we're super, super stoked and excited to have won that. What we've introduced this year is some narrow plank. You don't see a lot of narrow plank laminate in the marketplace. In fact, I don't know if we've seen any. Most laminates are 7.5, 8, 8.5, 9 inch wide, but we have launched a 5 inch wide product. It is gorgeous. It's got an ultra matte finish to it, a micro painted bevel, AC4, all the bells and whistles. Super, super nice. We won that award at Surfaces. We had a meeting with our RVPs in early December to launch and talk about all this stuff, and some of our folks actually thought it was the real wood setting down. It was actually next to our wood program, too. On the floors, we were showing them these new samples, and they were thinking it was wood. So it really looks good. I've been doing this a long time. I've been around a lot of factories. I've traveled the globe and seen a lot of things, and I'm really, really proud of what we've designed in laminate. That's why I said earlier I'm bullish on this category. Indestructible product. Obviously it's scratch, stain, and indentation, super resistant to all those things. And so we're excited about that, right? And so, but I can't leave out WPC. I mean, we've got a 60 SKU collection of WPC by the time we get into mid-year this year that ranges from 6.5 millimeters thick to 12 millimeters thick. We got 6.5, 8, 10, and 12 millimeter products in WPC. and we got widths from 4 inches all the way up to 12 inches. So we've got the whole gamut covered in terms of design. Whether you want skinny plank or super wide plank, we can offer all that. So it's exciting. It's been really exciting, and we're excited about 26 and partnering with obviously the ProSources all over the country. We have great relationships with many of them.
I've seen the new displays too in our ProSource of St. Louis showroom here at the office I work at, and I like the new logo. You guys have a new logo as well, and everything just looks very nice and sleek. But I wanted to ask before we get off of here, if a member is looking to learn more about Stanton products, aside from obviously you guys can go into your ProSource Wholesale showroom, ask an account manager. They can help you, direct you in the right direction. But if someone wants to, if they're laying in bed on their phone and they just want to learn more, where can they go to learn about Stanton hard surface products?
Definitely StantonDesign.com will take you to all things Stanton, both soft and hard surface oriented. We're expanding and actually updating our website. It'll have a new face to it here soon and doing some other things. But all the stuff is there. Again, like I said, Stanton is synonymous within the industry, has been for a very, very long time. So we're here to stay. We're not going anywhere. And obviously the pro sources around the country know who we are. Excited to be a part of all that. We're excited to grow our business, to let the world still know that Stanton's not just the decorative leader in high-end luxury and both. And, Stanton's even gotten into the higher, I guess the mid to higher range of polyester, soft surface, carpet as well. But we're not just a soft surface company. We are a full-fledged flooring supplier, soft and hard surface. And we want to continue to enhance what we do and become important to the pro sources and to the trade members, that go in and see and search. I know there's a sea of a lot of stuff in a pro source, right? There's a lot to look at. Sometimes it can become a little overwhelming. But that's true with most major retail showrooms across the country and design centers. There's a lot to choose from. That's where it goes back to history, to design, to standing behind your product. We have a quality team here in operations and distribution, from credit, tech services, claims, customer service. Everybody's close knit. We address that with our customers very promptly, and hopefully they're pleased with that approach too. So it's a complete circle from operations all the way out to the folks that are driving the business in the field. So we're
absolutely
happy to be out here competing and doing what we can.
Absolutely. And if, like we've mentioned before, nothing beats seeing it in person, seeing the samples in person and getting your hands on them. So if you want to do that, you can, if you don't know where your local ProSource Wholesale showroom is, you can go online to ProSourceWholesale.com. It'll tell you where the closest showroom is. Just go in there and ask about it, and they're happy to help you out. But thank you so much for coming on today. Having your expertise on this podcast truly means the world. Our Trade Pro members, if you've made it this far, you already have a lot more tools in your tool belt to get out there and just know which products to buy and what to look for. So I thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate it very much, Molly. Thank you for having me.